Hey everyone! Sorry this is so late. I totally forgot about my live tonight. I've been packing and my kids are going to my parents' house because we're going to Ohio for an opportunity event, and I totally spaced it. So I'm really sorry this is late. But I just was gonna go to bed and remembered that it was Thursday, and so I just wanted to hop on here and I figured I would talk about something that is kind of easier for me to talk about because it relates to me and my story, and it has to do with why CBD is so great for people and can help with when you feel really down, when you're really always worried, when your brain won't shut off like mine, when you just feel really gloomy in the dumps. I think that we can all relate to this, and we all have different levels of it, and some people it can be really debilitating. And so hey everybody, so I'm sure nobody will really be on this late. I totally understand. I think it's got to be 10 something here in Wisconsin, but I just figured I still wanted to come on here and talk about something. Hey, so I don't know how my connection's going to be because I usually have been driving into town to get a better connection. So this is the first time I've tried to do a live from my house in a long time, but I usually can't connect. So please let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me. Say hey when you're on. If you have to replay, say replay, and of course get back to the person that shared this with you. And if you have any questions, you can obviously ask them, or if you don't have anybody, you can message this page or message me personally. I did a live on CBD in our brain and how CBD works with our neurotransmitters and our neurochemistry to help certain things, and how it has certain effects. And it was like an hour long. So I just wrote some quick notes down so I stay on track and try and keep this short so that everybody, because I do want people to share this, because this is something that could explain to people why this could potentially help them, because there is a lot of science behind that. So with that, thank you for letting me know you can hear me. Okay, so to understand, CBD and your brain and how it can help with these things, you have to kind of get a little bit nerdy, and I'll try and keep this as simple as possible because some people get really bored. But basically, we have in the prefrontal cortex of our brain and the hippocampus. In the prefrontal cortex, there is a receptor called a 5-HT1A receptor, which is basically the serotonin receptor. We've all heard of serotonin. We know what it is. It's like a feel-good neurotransmitter. It makes us feel good. It's kind of like a bliss feeling, that kind of thing. Some people are deficient in it. Whatever, yada yada, they say that that's why, it leads to certain things. Now, I have to be kind of careful here with what I say. I don't want to get in trouble. But basically, it's really interesting, and this might surprise people, but CBD actually is a cannabinoid that indirectly affects our CB1 and CB2 receptors. So we have CB1 receptors and CB2 receptors in our bodies. CB1 are primarily in our brain, CB2 are throughout our body. They are vice versa, but the majority of them are in these places. Now, oops, sorry, I forgot to turn my thing on silent. So, with that being said, it indirectly affects the CB1 receptor. And what I mean by this is that THC, which is a psychoactive cannabinoid, it directly affects our CB1 receptors, which is what causes that psychoactive effect. Now CBD indirectly, which means that it actually makes our receptors in our brain more receptive. It affects the communication that we have, and so therefore our body is able to either produce more of our own endocannabinoids. We have two that we naturally produce, anandamide and 2-AG, or it makes them more receptive to take in our own naturally occurring endocannabinoids. So sometimes one or the other is off, or maybe it's both, and that's what leads to ultimately an endocannabinoid deficiency. But with this 5-HT1A receptor, a lot of times it isn't very receptive. So it's not able to take in the serotonin that we're producing. And so then therefore, we have different reactions from that, okay? So when you have less receptors in these areas of your brain, you're not going to be able to process this feel-good neurotransmitter. So then therefore, that's what leads to feeling down, feeling depressed. Oh, I keep freezing. Darn it. I'm sorry. Hopefully this works, but anyways, I'll just keep going, and I can always delete it and redo it tomorrow when I'm in Ohio. But basically that's what happens. And so my husband will let me know. He should be watching if it's really glitchy. But basically when that happens, there are different medications that people will take, and what happens is they work to completely block that receptor, and so then you have this overabundance and this huge amount of serotonin that like goes into your brain because it's not being absorbed. Now, what we really want to do is what CBD does, is it makes those receptors more receptive and more active, and so then we take in our own endocannabinoids. And the way that our body naturally works to feel good and modulate our feel-good hormones is on a negative feedback loop. So basically the same neuron that releases serotonin actually takes it in. And the reason it's important to know this is because this is how our body literally regulates how we feel in our mood. So it makes serotonin, it puts it out into the body, and then because it's the one that actually takes it in too, it is able to tell how much we have left. So then it says, oh, okay, I just created all this serotonin, and now, they really didn't use that much because our body's off for some reason or another, so it just stops producing it. Now, when you take certain medications, it blocks those receptors, so none of that serotonin gets absorbed, so your body stops producing its own natural serotonin altogether, which, as you can, kind of think that can be detrimental in the long run, and it's another reason that why when you come off of some of these medications, it's so hard. And I can speak for that myself. I went off of something that I was on for like 10 years when I found out I was pregnant with my first. I did it cold turkey because of the way my mind works. I could not stop thinking and worrying and obsessing and things like that. And so I went off it cold turkey, and it was horrible. Horrible. I was in withdrawal. So, and that was because my body didn't know how to produce, or wasn't, or hadn't for so long been producing this natural, happy, feel-good neurotransmitter. So it had to start basically working again and regulating and figuring out how much I needed and how much I was taking in and start all over from scratch. So what CBD does is it makes these receptors more receptive so that we take in our own. So then now it's putting out serotonin, and it has all these receptors that are communicating correctly and taking in what they need, and then it keeps producing it. And it's just this it's like this circle that just becomes smooth and does what it should. It puts out what it should, it takes in what it should, and it just runs efficiently and effectively, and your mood stabilizes. So that's how that works with that. The other thing that I want to talk about was the hippocampus, which is really responsible. It's the part of your brain that's responsible for like memory, long-term and short-term. It's also responsible for like orientation, not just orientation like, or navigation like you'd think like driving somewhere or whatever. It's like emotional orientation, and like if you're in a room, it helps you figure out distance, it helps you figure out what this is, how far it is, and also like emotionally being stable, that as well. So they find that when people are really down, people that have a lot of worrying going on, they're really in a dark place a lot, that they actually have a shrunken hippocampus. And what happens is it actually starts to, like, the brain cells start to die. It doesn't function as properly like it should. And there was a study, and I wrote down where the study was from. Because there's less activity, that's why it starts to shrink and stuff. And so there was a study published in the Journal of Neuropsychopharmacology that found that people that used CBD on a regular basis actually had neuroregenerative effects. So that means that there was new life in the brain, okay? So where this brain had shrunken and started to die, which, 40, 50 years ago, they literally would have thought it was impossible to bring back any part of a brain that had already gone. Now, that's why I did a live recently on another condition that can take your memory and other things from you, and it's a really awful condition that a lot of elderly people go through, and they have actually found that CBD has this effect on your brain where it can not only protect the your brain cells. I hate using big words, sorry. So it can not only protect your brain cells that you have from any damage, but it can also regenerate brain cells and create new life in your brain, even at an older age, which is just unheard of, and it's crazy. So with that, they found that people that use this had this happen, and their hippocampus started to heal and grow and flourish and that kind of thing. So that's why it's so important to remember that CBD not only has these short-term effects, but it also has long-term effects. That's why my kids will take this forever. That's why I will take this forever. Even if you start to get to a place where you're in what I call maintenance and your body has regulated and started to heal and that sort of thing, you still want to take this, because if there's an internal, external stressor, if something happens, life happens, all kinds of things happen, and if that occurs, your body will be able to react effectively and efficiently because it has what it needs to produce its own endocannabinoids for our naturally occurring natural receptors to communicate with one another. And then also long term, I am so grateful this is in my life, because I hope that it will protect my brain and it will protect my children's brain and my parents' brains. And, there have been studies, and this is kind of like a side note, there have been studies actually published on people that used cannabis back in like the 60s a lot, and they do not get the cases of this memory problem and where your brain starts to shrink and die and have all these issues. They don't have cases anywhere near what people who didn't use cannabis back then did. And they contribute that to cannabinoids and how it protects your brain. And so this is CBD from hemp. It's not going to get you high. And, it really is an incredible plant. I'm really passionate about it. Everyone on our team is, and it's really interesting. So I didn't want to get too crazy. I hope that I did okay with like keeping it kind of basic. And, maybe you can share this and it will help somebody understand how the science behind it works. Because, obviously if you ask somebody about a certain medication, they can tell you, well, this is how it works. It blocks this, it does this, whatever. Well, CBD naturally helps our body do what it's supposed to. It helps our body with that negative feedback loop and kind of just like keeps it a well-working machine. So that's my live for this week. Kind of just something that I love to talk about because it's really changed my life in that aspect, and the fact that I'm on here is proof of that, because I didn't want to used to leave my house. I didn't really do things with friends. I canceled a lot. I really didn't want to get out of bed most days. So the fact that I'm on here with all of you and sharing this with you guys really means a lot to me, and I hope that maybe someone watching will feel like their life can change from something natural too, because there's no harm in trying it, especially with our 60-day money-back guarantee. I am so grateful that after trying 4 brands and nothing helping me, that I found this one, and it was like night and day. So I hope that you guys learned something this week. I look forward to next Thursday with you guys. I promise I'll come on earlier, probably like 6 o'clock, and I will be going live a lot from Ohio because I'm excited to actually finally have internet. So take care, you guys. Please share, message me, message the page, message the affiliate that is sharing this with you, and we would love to help you and answer your questions. So have a great night and take care.